Hi, welcome to Studio 411. I'm your host, Larry Dasilva, and thank you for joining us for this hour. Our guest today, Dr. Marcy McDonald, is the current American record holder for solo crossing of the English Channel and was the first American woman to compete a double crossing of the Channel. I believe, she'll correct me if I'm wrong, a Connecticut native, and practices medicine here in the state of Connecticut, and is joining us here on the program. Welcome, Doctor.
It's great to be here, Larry.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
The invitation.
Now, correct, Connecticut native?
Yes, grew up in Manchester, born in Manchester.
There you go, see, and
practice in Manchester now.
Oh, practice, so everything is very, she never gets lost.
No, I do not.
In the water, we'll find out how she makes out, believe me. I have enough trouble getting in and out of the bathtub or the shower, and this woman is like just amazing what she has accomplished. Again, now that we've established growing up in Manchester, how, especially with the climate changes that we have here, how did you get into swimming? At what age?
My sister and I, my twin sister, and I, we found Manchester Rec Swim Club when we were 7, and the rec club was fortunate, Manchester was fortunate to have a new coach, Mel Siebold, coming over from California. And as I grew up, he had already done some open water swimming. So he would see certain swimmers that he thought might want to do open water swimming, or not necessarily but had the potential of being okay, good swimmers. So some of us were introduced to it. Never thought about what I've done with it as an adult, but started my first swim down in Greenwich when I was 12, and that was just a mile, and graduated to a 4-mile swim down in Virginia, and I was always led back to the water. I always liked the water.
Yeah.
So lifeguarding, all that good stuff back then, and just. Yeah.
And the first is it a pool, or is it like a lake, a Globe Hollow? Is that?
Globe Hollow is a man-made swimming hole.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Now it has a cement bottom, but it's been around for. We're looking at almost 100 years, because I know some people that are in the hundreds that used to be swimmers there. So it was probably before all the public pools were built,
right.
And it was one of the best places for me to train because it was dark water. I think I just was naturally, took to it.
So the old, as they would say, watering hole, right?
Yes, it truly was. We had turtles, and there were certain things that you got out there in the middle, out by the 50-meter mark, and there were swimmers that they swam as fast as they could back to the wall, But
take me back to those early days again. One thing, and we were kind of talking in roundabout ways about these things. As we get older, we always reflect back and say, "Oh, when we were young, we didn't do these things, or we didn't have these things, whether it be cell phones or 550 channels, or But and again, in this case, where you were, there was no necessarily high school or Y pool or whatever, or at least one that was accessible all the time." Again, when you and your sister Beth, who you talk about it with you at at each level side by side, again, was every member of the family? Oh, we got to watch them. Was there a chaperone or?
Oh no, but everything was different back then.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people who would go to public pools. Now, I don't think you really see too many people, because whether they have their own or I don't know where they are. But even if you look at the beaches now, they're not even close to being as full as they used to be when we were kids.
You have no lifeguards half the time.
Well, that is true too. That was one of the best jobs around, was to be a lifeguard. But Manchester was a fantastic town. I don't know why, but they had, when I was growing up, they had 4 public pools plus Globe Hollow, and then the high school had a pool. So a lot of swimmers came in from other towns to swim too, for our team, and it was it was, the price was right. I
Yeah,
mean, my father
okay.
was very happy with the price.
Yeah. It's like that movie, I don't know if you ever saw it, Breaking Away. It's like
Oh,
in
it
a
was
quarry
a
town,
great
and the
movie.
kids would go, now it'd be like, oh my God, someone's going to have a lawsuit.
Oh my
they're just
gosh, yeah.
they would jump
Yeah.
into the quarry, which was filled with
Yeah.
water, abandoned quarry.
Yep.
And again, this was their, where they let off their steam. And
But I won't go into what us lifeguards did when we were lifeguarding at Globe Hollow, but
To be continued.
needless to say, we broke a few rules.
Oh, there you go. There you go. See, we have controversy
Yeah.
on this show. Dr. Marcella Marcy McDonald, as I amazed her, if you look it up, Marcella is an old Beach Boys song from the early '70s. Great tune. I know she's going to check it out, and she'll be grooving to that and saying, "Wow, someone actually wrote a song with my first name." You practice podiatry in Manchester, correct?
Correct.
I've been there for.
Over 22 years now.
Wow, time flies. Yeah.
Time certainly does.
I don't know how she does it. Juggles, practicing medicine and swimming,
Well,
and you coach, mentor, teach. Just deal with a lot of nice folks. Work
They
with
are.
senior citizens as well too,
Yeah.
and just terrific. Comment that you made, quote, "I feel more comfortable in the water than out of the water." Now that obviously probably from the exposure to the ponds at a young age, correct?
Yeah, I finally have actually accepted it too. As I get older, sometimes those arthritis, it does hit, and I was always an athlete, but the waters, I know I'm going to be there for a long time. I certainly hope so.
You mentioned the gentleman who was a coach that gravitated from the West Coast, because again, what you do is not an Olympic sport. It is in a controlled setting, but certainly not swimming the English Channel. That we're not saying, oh, let's wait till the waves calm down. That doesn't happen. Who were other inspirations? I mean, were you flipping like Wide World of Sports and saying, wow, was there anybody back in the younger childhood days that said, wow, that's really cool?
Nowadays they have the 10K swim at in the Olympics, and some people say, oh, you must have gone to the Olympics, and I was like, no, because at that point, women's sports, actually women's swimming, the longest distance was a quarter mile,
right.
And that's truly a sprint for me and my swimming friends. But if the 10K was around when I was swimming, maybe that would have been it certainly would have been the event that I would have tried for. I don't know what I would have done, but nowadays I'm just too old to compete with these young 20-year-olds. But because that's about a 3-hour swim, and that's kind of what I do every day when I'm swimming, practicing. But when it comes to when I was growing up, I knew you were going to ask me that question, and I don't know who inspired me to do. It was just something we were doing.
Yeah.
It kind of just was, all right, we're going to the pool and we're swimming, and it's not necessarily that I liked. It was almost, you almost felt like it was a punishment that you had to be a distance swimmer, but Mel Siebold, he knew the swimmers who could do it, and we did pretty well in it. It wasn't even close to what it is now with awards and things like that, but
I'll give you an example, again, in a control setting, obviously,
Yeah.
but I can remember being a couple of years older than you. I can remember, like, in '72, Mark Spitz, dashing, Clark Gable look kind of esque, with the mustache or whatever. He was, for those of you that have no idea what I'm talking about, he was like the Michael Phelps of our generation, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he was.
And that, I thought maybe something like that would have, but again, that's kind of a
Well, I was
indoor.
that was probably the first Olympics that I was watching, and of course, Why World with Sports was on every Saturday.
Yeah,
I mean, everybody watched it because
Yeah.
it was kind of like the only thing on.
Exactly.
You know,
You have to remember, children. We only had like
we had
were
three
lucky. We
channels,
had three, and
you know.
I grew up closer to
Navy
New York,
Channel.
so I had like maybe
Yeah.
8. You know, it
Yeah.
was a regular fortune.
So Why World with Sports, I mean, you learned, ski jumping, and you learned a lot about a lot of sports too.
Even demolition derby, which is cool.
You're right. You are correct. There was some really good stuff out there. But yes, were we really excited when they had actually some swimming on? Yes. And I remember just watching the Olympics as much as possible on TV. And I think 1976, when we were up in Montreal, was a real turn. With Shirley Bradshaw, I think that's her name. Babishaw,
yes.
And of course the East Germans, and it was that was when I was starting to learn about the whole thing of all those Olympic things. But at that time, when I was swimming, as you were a teenager, they really thought the girls were washed up after 16 years old.
Yeah, but that was the same whether it was in basketball or anything else.
Exactly.
And thank God if it wasn't. And forgive me, I'm blanking. Which one was it? Not Proposition 9.
Oh, Title 9.
Title 9.
Yeah.
Forget it. You'd still be passing the ball with 2 hands. Dribble twice and pass the ball.
Exactly.
In your case, you'd be like, take like a couple of swims and then flip on your back and do the backstroke, because you can't be like a boy.
Oh, I know. God forbid that you overexert yourself. But Gertrude Ederle, which I don't know where the English Channel came into my mind, but apparently when I was 12, something came in because I said I was going to swim it. It must have been on, I don't know, my youngest sister mentioned it, but I don't remember it at all. But, you had some women that were doing it at that time, but they kind of just got shuffled away too. Everybody did.
I couldn't even name you a
people.
man that was doing it.
Right.
We'll talk a little bit about your friend also from Connecticut,
Peter,
whose record you broke. But I'm saying, nationally, I was like, wow, you'd hear about it maybe like, somebody's doing it as a publicity stunt, jumping off cliffs and in the South Americas or whatever, those kind of things, but to do this, it's just it's amazing.
I think Cindy Nichols, but she's from Canada, so she was like the North American princess of the channel. She had a lot of swims too, but 19 swims. 19,
and now you, as of 2014, now you have correct me on this, swum, or what's the proper, swam the 15 times.
I'm sure an English teacher's going to get us on
swam, and not swum. I don't think so, but anyway.
I think it's a word.
Yeah, it is. Okay.
But I think I have swam.
Okay. Triple letter. I get 43 points. All right. But you've done it 15 times, and again, just for those listening in, again, it starts, I guess it could start on either side, but traditionally it starts on the English side.
Correct.
Okay, so in other words, from England to France, that's considered one.
Correct.
Now, and you've done now what, 3 doubles?
I've done 3 doubles.
3 doubles. So out of the 15, 6 were accomplished, let's say, in 3 separate, a total of 3 years. Mm-hmm. The woman, and forgive me, I'm blanking whether she was English or French. I'm sure you've met her. I would be surprised if you hadn't. The one that's done it 43 times. Allison, she's the queen of the channel. Yeah. She's English. I don't think 43 times, and that is 3 triples? No, 1 triple. Oh, 1 triple. And I think she has 3 doubles, and then the rest are all solos. Yeah. And now is she still active at this point? Nope. No. She gave it up. She kind of left the. She had to take some time away. It was just too much of her life because she lives there. It was a focus on her life she's the same age as me, so for a good 25, 30 years,
she started when she was 17 years old to swim. One year she did 9 crossings with, that might have been the year with the triple, but I'm not even positive. But that's a lot of swimming, and there was a lot of pressure, and so she just, she's doing her own life.
Yeah. Oh, and it's kind of like tennis players. They call it, whether it's burnout or whatever. I mean, if you reach 30, that's amazing. I mean, because people, I can remember like a Tracy Austin, 13, 14. By the time she hit 30, injuries and other things.
It's hard.
Took her away.
I'm one of the few people. Actually, I think right now, if I were to go to Dover this year, even last year. I am one of the longest standing swimmers. So it's 21 years that I've been around the channel and doing these long swims. It's hard on your body. I mean, I take one swim at a time, and I never know if that's going to be the last big one. Right. Because I've certainly have had some injuries that have, and it's just overuse injuries. It's not, luckily there's no rotator cuff problems, but I'm always careful with my shoulders and my posture and my swimming posture.
Now, one thing that I read in the notes was within, I assume, the last 5 or 10 years, you through some advice, I assume, altered your stroke?
Yeah, I'm a better swimmer now than I was 20 years ago.
Okay, so for all us lay people, except maybe Lisa in the production studio, kind of, explain so that
it's all about efficiency. Okay. And, the younger swimmers, a lot of times we're always in pool swimmers, we're thinking about speed, okay? And speed and distance can mix, but over a period of time, it will also take some stress on the ligaments and tendons. And so the best thing for open water swimmers, or anybody, long distance runners, long distance cyclists, is to have the most efficient technique. And so after my first crossing, I was always a one-sided swimmer, and that's really a no-no for a one-side breather. Okay. That's usually a no-no for, and I, as a coach, am always trying to get my swimmers to be bilateral breathers because it evens out your stroke and it makes it more efficient. But it's hard, but I kind of got tired of the day after my swim or getting out of the water and not being able to lift my arm. So, I've learned. And if you look at my videos from 20 years ago to now, you would probably say that's not even the same swimmer because I'm just more efficient. That's all it is. And
also, would you say, because I'm sure, especially with today's technology, do you track, let's say, from regardless of whether it's the channel or from here to the end of the parking lot, the amount of time it took you to get from one spot to the other? So do you find that with the modifications, your times have increased?
Oh, well,
or gotten better? Faster,
but,
yes.
I would say at least now, as I get older, they're stable. So I'm almost as fast as I was 20 years ago, but using less energy.
Right.
So I can go further with that. You can almost tell time when I'm in a pool because I pretty much know exactly. All I have to do is look at the pace clock, and you could say, okay, if I swim 1,000 yards, it's probably going to be a nice, easy 15 minutes. You could, and I know that, so you could, a lot of times I'll know when I'm swimming out. I count my cycles of strokes when I'm swimming. It's just kind of something that's happened in the last 10 years to help me with the monotony of swimming. But I pretty much know how long I've been in the water between feedings. So at about a half an hour, or we're getting close to 45 minutes, I'll know, and I'm looking at the boat going, when are you going to stop me? Come on, the fish needs to be fed. Yeah. So, and my crew knows that too. And there are times that they're overtime and they apologize for being late on a feeding, and But yeah, I've actually know too much about this sport, and I have a friend that is a very good swimmer too, and she always tries to be need to know swimmer, but it's kind of hard because once you've been there for a few times, you know where you are in the water, you know the shipping lanes, and just from how the boats are traveling. If the boats are traveling north, you're in, they travel south in the first shipping lane. So you pretty much know how far you are, and sometimes I don't want to know where I am.
Amazing.
I just want to be the swimmer,
Traffic coordinator, it sounds like.
Yeah, you can tell where you are.
Marcy McDonald, the American Queen of the English Channel, joining us here on Studio 411 for the hour. One thing I wanted to ask before I forget now, give me an idea to the training regimen. I mean, when you started this process 20-some years ago, all of a sudden, did someone encourage you, or perhaps one of your mentors you mentioned earlier, to say, okay, you got to do this, you got to go out? I mean, are you running track? Are you lifting weights? I mean, how are you building the stamina?
Well, I've always been an athlete.
Okay.
And when the triathlons were in their beginning stages, and that was when I was lifeguarding and in college at AIC in Springfield. So in the summertime, we were starting to do that, and I really don't like running. I hate running. I don't know how anybody gets high with it, but I get my high in the water. So, but that's where it kind of started, and in having that background of being doing some open water swimming as a kid, I was always drawn back to the pool. And so when I was doing my breaks at Globe, I'd be in the pool just doing a mile just to do my exercise for the day. But who can train me? Not too many people know how to train me now. I did a lot of reading. I've always been, I was living at the 92nd Street Y in New York, so I have all the, I knew what I needed to do because Mel taught us that you needed to do dry land, you needed to keep the body strong. And I just followed a lot of workouts that we did when I was a kid. So we were swimming 5 miles a day. And it wasn't just a straight 5 miles, so I knew I had to break it up. So that's what you see on my blog all the time. There's a lot of workouts. Those are my workouts that I do. So, but now I've gotten to the point that I'm much more consistent with my training. When I moved back 1992 to Manchester, it was kind of hard to find places to swim for the amount of time I did, and then the goal came to swim the channel, and sometimes I felt like I had to take 2 days off because I just couldn't manage the time, so then I'd have to go to the pool and have to spend 5 hours there, and I can't stand that. So gradually, as my work schedule calmed down, and then I found good places to swim, usually early in the morning before I go to work. I swim on a short day, an hour and a half, and on a long day, 3 hours. Wow. But when I was younger, I would certainly do a good 2.5 hours. Now that I'm getting older, I'm pretty good with an hour. 2 hours is fine, but I'm consistent with it. So that's 5 or 6 days, and so I tally everything up at the end of the week. And I want to do a certain amount of yardage, which turns into mileage per week. As long as I hit that, I'm pretty good. Sure. That's what I've learned at. Certain swimmers like to do what I call the weekend warriors. They swim just on the weekends, and they swim for 6 hours, and on Saturday and Sunday, and then they take the rest of the week off. And I can't do it. It's not my training schedule. Right. But I'm a consistent swimmer, and I'm an early bird. I'm exhausted by the end of the day.
Definitely not a late bird. Many a times, Marcy, I'm going to bed now.
Yeah, right. Hey, you get up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Pool. There you go.
4 o'clock in the morning.
You mentioned your blog, cuttingwater.blogspot.com, and again, you know, a lot of good stuff on there. I know that you know, I'm just amazed the videos alone. I mean, showing, you know, some of the you know, the races and the different things.
Yeah, and there's just some fun
pre
people
and
on
post,
there.
you know, activities going on there. So
Yeah.
finally, after 3 tries, you were able to do your double crossing. So I assume, in other words, after 3 tries where, yes, you went from point A to point B, but after that 3rd time, then you were able to go again from England to France, and then from France to England. Take us through that again. What do we get out, have a coffee, and jump back in, or I mean, how? Because again, you hear a lot of different things. Different swimmers do different things.
But the double, when I was first introduced to the double, which I never even thought about a double, I didn't think anybody ever did them. You know, it wasn't like in the book on channel swimming. So the day after I swam my first crossing, I went back to the beach, and this woman says, Allison's mom, says, when are you going to come back for the double? And I totally had, what is that? Why would anybody want to swim back to England? And she said, no American women have done it yet. And there was only one American man that had done it. So, and there were only 6 people that had done it no, 5 people in the world that had done it. So, so I kind of just said, well, I'm not going to do that. But it kept gnawing at my brain. And so in
She's a smart lady. She did that, I think, to get under your
Yeah, she planted the seed. And, you know, she was the one that said, she said, well, that 10 and a half hour swim, that was a pretty good one. So, you know, you should think about it. And that's what I did. I thought a lot about it. But in 97, or 96, I decided to give it. I said, oh, well, how hard can it be? It's only an extra lap, you know, in the big pool. But oh God, it was.
Now, before I forget,
horrible.
the one crossing is around like 21 and a half miles. What's
yeah. If, as they say, as the crow flies.
Yes.
Straight across is 21 miles.
Right.
And you travel a certain amount because of the tides. But it's really 21 miles. You're still swimming 21 miles. But the average time for, like, mine now has gone up because I'm getting older. But about 11 hours. 11 and a half hours.
To do the one crossing.
One crossing.
Yeah, so, okay.
Yeah. So I said, oh, you know, what's the difference of, you know, it's just another 11 hours in the water.
And the water.
It's a monster of a swim.
As we spoke off air, the waters, and again, I learned this early on, even back during World War II. I guess there was some discussion about, oh, the English Channel, you know, again, trying to, fight the Germans or whatever was going on. And they said, oh, the waters are fierce and, you know, cold and choppy. And so any waters near the U.S. that you would equate these two that are as rough and choppy? I mean, again, we spoke about how Connecticut to Long Island, you can't compare those because, again, there's no, you know, there's no open water there. You know,
I mean,
in the
you
true
could
sense.
well, when I went up to Boston has some good cold water, even because it's almost to the open Atlantic Ocean. So anytime you go north, and if you wanted to do some good training, you know, you go to Maine.
Yeah, so
you know, or
I hear you can't even get in the water at the beach.
Oh, you can. The kids are in the water. Kids love water, right? It's the adults that know, it's cold.
I've never figured out at what age they find that a light bulb goes out. Oh, you know what? Maybe it's like 8 or 10. Ooh, you know what? I'm not doing
really
that
cold
anymore.
Out
and all of a sudden they're like, it's too cold.
But that's a good place to train. Seattle's good. I mean, the West Coast is great, but you're dealing with actually the Pacific Ocean is really cold in comparison to the Atlantic Ocean because we've got the Gulf Stream that comes up.
I've heard up there like Seattle, Washington, up into Oregon. You got some pretty nasty weather or water up there.
But the deal with the channel is that it's just it never 66 degrees is probably the warmest it gets in a heat wave year. Okay, and it's such a small stretch of water, that 21 miles. And here again, I know too much about it now. So it's the water's flowing up into the North Sea and then coming back to the Atlantic Ocean. So it never really gets to warm up. And I've seen storms just like come from the Atlantic Ocean, and then all of a sudden they're gone. But if you're out in the water, you got to deal with it. Once you start your swim, you have to deal with it, and sometimes it can't be forecast. When I was out there one time, the forecast that everybody in Dover was getting was that we only had 7 knot winds. No, we had 17, which were nasty. And I think that was my last triple. I mean, last double. Never did a triple.
Yes, yes. Not yet.
Not yet. If ever. But that was in 2000. No, that wasn't my last one. That was the second one. And I was like, why am I out here? It was horrible.
Now, at that point, whether it's calm or rough, talk us through. In other words, is there your crew, or with any swimmer, they have a crew, or even if it's one person, are they following you in like a motorboat, a kayak, a canoe? I mean, what are they?
They are now. They're called, like, the brand is a Pedro boat, or they're just big boats, but the motors are designed that they can go at a slow pace. We're slow. We're almost as slow as a bottle in the water.
Right.
The freighters and all these, things that are going down, they're moving really fast. We are so slow out there. The fastest swimmers are only going 3 miles an hour. And I know I'm not the fastest swimmer, so probably but your slower swimmers, some of them are going 1.5 miles an hour.
Ooh, they didn't like that.
But
we have firecrackers celebrating her accomplishment. There we go.
But so the longer you're in the water, you never know what's going to happen out there. I mean, the pilots, the technology has gotten a lot better, so our numbers of people accomplishing it is getting better because people are training better. And we know the weather patterns much more now with our internet.
I wanted to mention this photo here. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is an example again of what you would be looking at.
That's a great day.
That's a good day?
That chop right there is a good chop.
So in other words, a not so good day would be like the perfect storm.
Oh yeah. No, I'll take that day any day.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
I've been in some pretty nasty, and other swimmers have too. I've only had one day that was flat as this desk.
No kidding.
And but it was an October swim, and so the water was on the warmer, cooler side. But I'll tell you, we started in the mid 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we had 4 hours of daylight. Yeah. And then as soon as those lights went off, the water and everything got so cold. It was so cold. Everything was. I got out of that water and I was just like, I didn't want to swim back to the boat.
Wow.
I was on shore on France, and I did not want to get back in that water.
Now, I read somewhere where at least the English Channel, the governing body or whoever oversees that, you're not allowed to wear any kind of like apparatus or suit, whatever. I mean, suit is swimsuit, no, whatever, scuba gear type material.
No wetsuits.
That kind of thing. But you use a certain, what is it, a cream? What is it that helps retain the body heat?
It's, as you can see in some of these, you don't see too much. I use Vaseline.
Okay.
And Vaseline is just there for chafing now.
Gotcha.
My first swim, they do have this stuff they used to make, but when they had the foot and mouth disease with all the sheep over there, they stopped making the lanolin. So they would make this thing called channel grease, and it was a combination of Vaseline and lanolin, which to this day I have a hard time smelling lanolin because it brings back some bad bad thoughts.
Psychosomatic. People sometimes smell cigar smoke, they think of a loved one or whatever. No, you smell lanolin.
Lanolin is just like, it's horrible.
See, I can relate to that foot and mouth. I've done that a few times when I've said something I shouldn't have said. I think she said hoof and mouth, but anyway, foot and mouth would apply to me.
Yeah, But my sister she went crazy the first time, and it doesn't make you. It doesn't make you warm.
Yeah.
It just makes you, disgusting.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So that was just about chafing.
Stay on France. Don't swim out to the boat.
Yeah.
Okay. We don't.
Just use Vaseline
Take a
now.
shower.
Yeah. Oh, there are some swimmers that put a lot onto.
Marcella McDonald joining us for the hour here on Studio 411. Marcella inducted into the International, I assume, Marathon Swimming Hall of Fame in 2005. Also a member of the Board of Directors. So again, very impressive. And
I vote.
I'm sorry?
I just vote.
Oh, you vote, eh? It's important to vote. Important to vote.
True. Yeah.
But now, in the English Channel, we've talked about some of the conditions, obviously the rapid decline in the temperatures, the waves. What about, again, like I know in some of the warmer parts of the country, a lot of jellyfish. What other kind of obstacles you're dealing there? Loch Ness Monster, perhaps?
Maybe this year. Before 2011, I used to just say, the jellyfish, they stay below the surface. I had never gotten stung.
There we go. There's an image of. So talk us through that. Continue.
This is this last swim, my 15th swim. So as you can see, this is the straight line,
right.
At 21 miles.
You took a left at Albuquerque.
Yeah, so the tide takes us up north, and then it turns, and then we come back. You're usually trying to go for this point here,
right.
Which is Cape Grenade, but I missed it. Oh well. But we came down here, and I got to this point, and I do not want to go past that point again, because if I do, I know I have another 6 hours in the water. So I kept asking them, am I safe yet? Am I safe yet? And they, no, you're not. So I had to keep swimming fast.
If you veer to the east, in other words, there's more
see how this line is going up?
Cover. Yeah.
If I was slowing down here, it would have taken me right past the point, and then I would have had to go up and then wait for the tide to change. And I knew that point there was a very important point, so I had to swim hard even after 10 hours. I'm like, am I safe? No, you're not. Keep swimming.
But now, if you have the crew that's kind of at a safe distance, following you, are they allowed to say, hey, you're veering off course? Or
I'm just following the boat.
Oh, okay,
so
gotcha.
I am just the swimmer.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty good follower when it comes to swim, or I'm right next to the boat.
Right.
I trust in my pilot. That's his job, and my job is just to swim. My crew that I bring over, they're in charge of feeding me and, entertaining me, whatever, but watching me. Everybody's watching me. Mm-hmm. They just don't want anything to happen. Right. But my pilot has his crew, and they have their job, and I have my crew, and they have their job.
Now going back several decades, any historical, precedent? I mean, other people, perhaps some made it, some didn't survive, where someone attempted to do this crossing, in other words, without any, kind of backup support?
I think everybody that has tried to swim it has done it with support. They did have a drowning. Now with all these many immigrants are coming in, and oh gosh, a couple of years ago they found a woman's body. It washed up. I don't know whether in France or England, but she was trying to cross. She didn't have any support. She just bought a wetsuit.
Wow.
And she thought maybe she would be able to make it, because you can see the France or England on a nice clear day.
It's like looking at the shoreline in Connecticut, and you can see Rhode Island to your left, but you can see Long Island on a good clear day.
Right.
And it seems like, wow, you can almost touch it. Oh no.
Right. But the first, I don't know before Captain Webb. Captain Webb was the first one to make it in 1875. And that's pretty impressive. I still can't believe he did it.
But this was, again, without, in other words, it's recorded as such, but with a
He had rowboat.
Boat, canoe, someone
Rowboat.
following
Yep.
him. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Who knows before that?
Right,
I mean,
right.
well, people tried it, but he was the first one to. And then it took another 11 years for the next success. And here again, we're talking about, they could have woken up and said, hey, it's a pretty nice day out. Let's go for a swim.
Yeah.
Even though the next day is going to be a horrible day out there. So,
And now are you able to gauge, in other words, they say, okay, Marcella, you're up next, tomorrow, 6 o'clock, be at the dock. And you're saying, wait a minute, the conditions, short of like horrific weather, I mean, if they say, well, the winds are going to be this, going to be that, are you able to say, oh, no, let's do it the day after? In other words, you're given a time and a date, and that's it?
Your pilot really wants you to make it.
Right.
And he is the one who's looking at the weather forecast. And as I said, I've learned a lot now. So when I go over there, that's one of the first things that we do with our computers is log into all the weather channels and everything like that. Mm-hmm. And you're watching the weather at 7 o'clock at night. And that's when you call your pilot. The decision to go the next morning you're thinking next morning, it's probably 1 o'clock in the morning that you're going. You're meeting him up at 1 o'clock in the morning. But that's when he's looking at everything and all the weather. Now, if I've been told many times, I've called Mike, my pilot, Mike Orm, and he says, you know what? Go relax. We're not going out for another 2 days at least, or 3 days, because the weather, we're just having horrible weather.
Right.
Wind is horrible. And that's the name of one of my little stories I wrote, the dream that blew away, because the wind just got in the way of everything. Wind is nice for touring. It's nice for cycling. It might be nice for running, but
especially
swimming,
if it's at your back.
Yeah, exactly. But wind in the channel, is horrible.
Yeah.
It gets in the way of a lot of good stuff.
You have a saying, and I'm assuming that you came up with this quote: "Dream, prepare, succeed." That's kind of like kind of a mantra you have. Is that something you impart to folks that you train, or that you, especially younger folks that maybe are getting into swimming at a young age?
Yeah, I mean the key word there for most of the people that I talk to is the prepare. And when I do talk to students, and sometimes I talk to schools, and I don't care what you're doing, whether it's swimming, playing ball, being a cellist, being a singer, in schoolwork.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
If you want to succeed, is just be prepared. If you go into it feeling that you've prepared 100%, I mean, sometimes I overtrain, but that's okay. I've overtrained. That's all right. And that's exactly what I did for the first time. I pretty much overtrained.
Yeah.
But you're almost guaranteed that you're going to succeed. I mean, injuries are totally different. You get injured, you really don't have too much control over that. But I have swam injured too.
I was going to say, have you had any
Yes.
years where you had to cut it short, or just sustained?
The only year that I got out early was that 2000 when, and it was I was sick after 3 hours. I knew something was wrong. Or no, not 2000, 1999. And we had started. It was dark. There was an accident the night before with a cruise liner and a tanker up north, about 30 miles north in Margate. And I've never tasted or smelt the water that bad. I mean, it was petroleum.
Yeah.
It seemed like, and we didn't know because it was black.
Right.
It's pitch black. But
You're used to black water, as the old song goes, but not
yeah. And it actually was like
man-made
like
black.
It was too bad because it was almost like the perfect. I mean, we had a rolling night. It was almost, which actually you travel more on a rolling night, but it wasn't like a smashing, wave on you. But I had never been sick like that. I still have never been sick like that. I can get over it. I mean, I swam in 2004. My belly was hurting, and we cut out everything except I survived on water, honey, and this carbohydrate mix.
Right.
That's it for like 20 hours. That's what I had. It was horrible, but I was able to keep it down. I mean, that year, it was the hardest thing for me to do is to swim over to the ladder, especially going over to France.
Sure.
I mean, I've not made it, you know, I mean, in 2000 I didn't make my double, but I had already been out there for 14 hours. And that's when my mind just kind of collapsed. I looked out into the horizon, and I saw this band of clouds, and I was like, oh, that's going to cover up the sun, and I'm going to get cold. And I only had 7 hours left to swim.
Wow.
But in my mind, I kept telling myself, oh, I'm going to be too cold. And I got out of the water. But the next day, I called Mike and said, okay, let's book it for next year.
Yeah,
and that's when I did it.
Sure.
That's when I did it.
There's an image here of your twin sister.
Yeah.
And now you are on the right or on the left?
That's me. Right there.
It's like the Parent Trap. Which one is which one is which one? Okay.
Yeah. I think.
Okay.
I think.
I thought it was you were on the right, but okay. We'll have to.
No, because my sister's always been a little taller than me.
Okay. So she's
Tiny
on the
bit.
left.
Yeah, we had so much fun. That was a relay, and
I can see some shenanigans at the McDonald household. As
we tried
children,
when we were little.
All of a sudden it'd be
father,
like, okay, yes,
my father
I'm Marcella, and no, the other one is, the other one is out swimming. Yeah.
It didn't matter. My father couldn't tell us apart. He was so bad at.
Oh my goodness, there's stories to tell there.
Yeah.
More stories to tell there. By the way, the English Channel, for those of you, I didn't know this, known as the Mount Everest of open water swimming. So again, for those, then you always hear about people climbing or attempting to anyway climb the Mount Everest amongst other large-scale mountains. Again, an apt comparison.
Yeah, well, and we as open water swimmers, or there's a large group of us who want to do it. We're called purists in our swimming, and that's one thing about the channel. The rules are, we try to follow everything that Captain Webb did.
Right.
One suit, and we get to wear a bathing cap now.
In the old days,
I think he probably wore a wool.
No,
something.
I'm saying, when you first started, were you allowed to wear a bathing cap or no?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but everything is just one cap, one a pair of goggles, and a suit. So there are swimmers now that want that experience to touch France, and they do wear a wetsuit, but they're not in our category.
Right,
they're not in, and they're just not. They're not swimming across. We call it crossing.
Tell me about Gumby and Pokey. What's up with that?
Well, you remember Gumby and Pokey.
Oh, I know who they are. Yes. Little cartoon or kind of figures, whatever.
Claymations.
But they seem to go everywhere with you. What's they're like little inspirations?
You know what? I found they're dog toys, but I found them, and Gumby and Pokey have been all over.
I saw Gumby look like he was hanging out of a suitcase.
Yeah, he has some drinks once in a while too. He comes, and now I have little mini ones too.
There you go. So,
but he just, the last few years, it's just been a lot of fun, and he makes me smile. So,
I see some luggage tags. You'll know I'll be sending those to you.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it'd be great.
Tell us about, real quick, in the remaining moments we have here on Studio 411. I found it interesting. I don't know whether he's still with us, but John, is it Leonard or Leonard?
John Leonard.
John Leonard. Member of the 1948 Hungarian swim team in the 200-meter individual medley. A friend of yours, or a fellow swimmer?
Yeah, he is a great guy. He's turning 85. I train up in Mansfield Community Center, and he's swimming now. And he remembers me even before I went to England, because I would come up and go to Yukon and swim. And he says, "Oh, you're much faster now." And I'm like, but he is just he's 85, and he still swims like 2 miles every day when he's in the pool. And he gets really mad at us now because he's slowing down this little bit, and we're not yet. And but he's
Yeah, see, there's in his own way, maybe not, I don't know how long you've known him, I assume not like 25 years, but there's in his own way in your career now, there's an inspiration right there.
Oh yeah, and he and a lot of my seniors inspire me. And he just is just there are times that I feel guilty that I took a day off because I know John went to the pool. But he says, I'm retired. I can take,
So you have a lot of good stories to tell about the Olympics back in the day.
Very interesting man, and he had
I'm making a note of that.
Oh, he is. I mean, his escape from Hungary was pretty amazing too. Because
48 was really the first Olympics. 36, what we call the Jesse Owens Olympics, and then there was no Olympics in 40 and 44 because of the war. And then so your friend not only, as you said, not only probably escaped with his life, and
he did. There are some.
The fact that he was able, although he's very self-deprecating, is like, I wasn't one of the best swimmers, but still, hey, anybody who can make an Olympics, I got to tell you,
I know.
That's impressive.
He's a good guy.
And the 200-meter individual medley, so that's good.
Yeah, and I mean, at 80, even now, he's turning 85, which is the young person in his age group, because they go by 5 years in master swimming. I'm like, John, let's go to nationals again. No, I had enough of that. And I'm like, come on, I stopped at 80. And I'm like, I'll go to nationals. I have never been to nationals.
No, there you go. Well, John will he'll make all the arrangements.
Yeah.
Touching the remaining couple of minutes we have, you're also very active in fundraising. So again, we were talking. You've done some things with some of the charities involved with the shoreline.
Swim Across the Sound, which is through St. Vincent's Medical Center Foundation, and they help patients and their families dealing with cancer and lots of different things, mobile mammogram buses, and just some great support groups. If you just go online to Swim Across the Sound, you'll find some really amazing stuff. I mean, wonderful people down there. So
good.
I always try to raise money for them.
Sure. No, that's great.
Yep.
I have a quote here. Freestyling foot doctor. Is that a kind of a nickname that you have? Or I got that from some article.
Really?
Freestyling foot doctor.
I had no idea.
And there's another image of the, that's a lovely, lovely image,
I know.
So believe me, we would all be that lucky if we could be swimming.
You don't know how happy I was when that came up, because that was like 3 hours into my swim, and that's all I was looking for was that big ball of orange.
That's good. That's good.
Really,
nice day to be swimming. Dr. Marcella Marcy McDonald, podiatrist, again, born, raised, still practicing in the Manchester, Connecticut area. Again, those of you attended Manchester High School. So again, dream, prepare, succeed. That's her mantra. And as you said before, that I think we can all apply that to anything. I do that. I prepare for this show, and I hope I succeed. And once in a while, I doze off while I'm trying to make notes. So I do that. So thank you for joining us, and it's been a pleasure. And we look forward to hearing more about you.
All right. Thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure. And that's the end of another episode of Studio 411. We thank Dr. Marcella McDonald for joining us this day, and we look forward to seeing you again next time on Studio 411. Larry Dasilva, your host. Take care.